What's up, Nashville? I am Beau Beach. This is the Free Speech Podcast. We're going to get you caught up on the most important stories from the past 2 weeks. I know as well as anybody, it's very difficult to stay up to date on everything that's going on in the Nashville commercial real estate market. And that's what we strive to achieve with this show. We work through all of the top stories and only share with you the highlights of those we think you will find valuable, and then we'll sprinkle in some fun things occasionally with politics, culture, sports. I will tell you today we're going to be very heavy on updates on the commercial real estate market, right? So I'm going to give you a quick overview of all the stories we're about to discuss, and then we're going to get into it. Number one, Late Powell again doesn't lower interest rates. All the commercial real estate brokers in Nashville are pounding their heads against the wall as they think of Late Powell and how much he is holding us back. Nothing would change our market more than an adjustment to interest rates. Next, we'll talk about Elon's tunnel is coming to Nashville free of charge. Next, a barbecue spot takes over the corner pub space in Brentwood. You know, I'm a Williamson County guy and I love some barbecue, so that story caught my attention. Party Foul is coming to a location in 5 Points, 5 Points, of course, in the East Nashville neighborhood. H.G. Hill finally moving forward with its Hill Center Franklin property, which is a massive site that's been sitting vacant on Columbia Avenue for quite some time. The ball is now rolling on that project. I'll let you know what they have planned there. Blackstone says the commercial real estate market is picking up steam. So one of the largest, most sophisticated investors in commercial real estate likes what they're seeing. I'll share with you what they've got to say about that. Downtown Jack's Barbecue closes after selling its very small building for a record price of $15 million. You'll be surprised to hear what's going in there next and the price that was paid for that small building. An 18-story East Bank hotel near the Oracle campus is being planned. I'll walk you through that. And lastly, another big project in Donaldson. The former Donaldson Hospital is now being eyed for a massive mixed-use development. I'll walk you through what that project looks like. So let's start it off with Late Powell. You know, I'm so sick of discussing interest rates with our clients. You know, we still expect to get at least a 0.5 point interest rate reduction by the end of the year, but it really could not come fast enough. So perhaps the first coming in September and then one more by the end of the year, but who knows? The U.S. Federal Reserve is holding steady on its benchmark lending rate, leaving the real estate industry and President Trump waiting for the cut they desire. As widely expected, the Fed said Wednesday it kept the interest rate at the current target range of 4.25 to 4.5% because of, quote, uncertainty about the economic outlook remains elevated. So, you know, just fear. This is just fear-based stuff. There's nothing really tracking that would produce fear. They just have fear of the unknown, what's coming next. However, chances look good for an interest rate cut to come in the fall. Real estate industry professionals are hopeful the Fed cuts rates during its Federal Open Market Committee meeting in mid-September. The U.S. economic uncertainty created by the Trump administration's shifting tariff targets for U.S. trading partners are proving to be a wild card, according to economists. So you've got all these economists that think they're smarter than everyone else. They think that tariffs should create elevated inflation. So even though we have no signs of that, they're just in this holding pattern while they're fearful of just waiting for the other shoe to drop on tariffs. In the U.S., not all members of the Federal Open Market Committee agreed that the rate should have remained the same. In fact, 2 members voted against the decision. It's the first time that more than one governor of the group voted against the chair since 1993. So there's kind of a board involved here. It's just not too late Powell. There's a board that's also voting on such matters. And that board has not had 2 members vote against the leader since 1993, which was a long time ago. So there's some disagreement even at the federal level on whether or not now is the right time to cut. The Fed forecast this summer that it would make at least 2 quarter-point cuts before the year is out. So this summer they said, hey, we're going to cut it twice, total of 0.5 point by the end of the year. But they're just taking their sweet time. There's so many people that would love to move. There are so many people that would love to refinance. There are so many people that need some breathing room in their loan payments, but yet they seem to be in no hurry because tariffs are supposed to cause inflation. And even though there's no sign of that inflation, we're just worriers and we want to wait longer. Quote, there is no assurance of interest rate cuts resuming in September, but with 2 rounds of employment and inflation data on tap between now and then, the Fed will have plenty of data on which to decide. So the idea is they're making an excuse that they don't have enough data from which to determine whether or not they should lower interest rates, which I think is insanity. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but for some reason, thousands of people, thousands of government workers are on payroll at the U.S. Federal Reserve. Thousands. Their budget is crazy, but still they don't have enough data from which to make decisions. I mean, I hear a lot of stories about how the Federal Reserve just needs to be abolished altogether. And I think that's probably unlikely. But just like the rest of government, everything needs to be downsized substantially. We are just overpaying for every single aspect of our federal government, which includes the Federal Reserve. They still can't get it together with thousands of employees and a multi-billion-dollar building to work from. I mean, it just does not provide any level of professionalism or expertise that the market really respects. I don't know many people that look to the Federal Reserve really for any type of insightful information. They screwed up all of the inflation under Biden, where they really waited to increase rates when inflation was clearly out of control. They were very, very late on increasing rates. And now I would argue they are very, very late in decreasing rates. So really, what do these people get right? And I think, people say the same of economists generally. It's not just government employed economists, it's all economists. Impractical, very rarely right. It's kind of a backward looking thing. They can never really make good estimates of what's coming next. It's always backward looking. It's always too late. It's always a disappointment. And I would say the Federal Reserve and too late Powell have proven for years they are a true disappointment. And I think most people really think they behave in a political manner rather than working from the so-called data that they don't have enough of. All right, so let's keep it moving. Elon's tunnel is coming to Nashville free of charge, with a possible fall of 2026 opening. But the Boring Company said recently in an announcement that the tunnel could be operational in about 2 years. So fall of 2026 seems really unlikely to me, but an operational tunnel within 2 years of actually putting a shovel in the ground, that seems more realistic. The tunnel will be called the Music City Loop and be undertaken with no cost to taxpayers. It will connect to BNA and the Music City Center and allow users to get from the airport to the convention facility in just 8 minutes. The first phase would involve a 10-mile tunnel, which is expected to take cues from the Boring Company's Las Vegas tunnel network that allows fleets of Tesla electric vehicles to transport passengers back and forth. The Boring Company intends to begin construction immediately following the approvals process. And that's the problem with all commercial real estate projects, or in this case, a government project. It just takes so long to get all of the approvals, and that's just one of the many things that has to go right to get any of this done. So who knows how long it's going to take the government to get their act together. I know the state is kind of leading the charge on this, and Nashville is thinking, Metro Nashville is thinking, oh, we got to slow this way down. We haven't even been consulted. So we'll see. Quote, the Boring Company is excited to bring our world-class tunneling and transportation capabilities to Tennessee. So you have to be someone that, one of these blue no matter who people to turn your nose up at this project, which is obviously very cool. It is no cost, no direct cost to the taxpayer. This is how projects should get done. So anybody that's turning their nose up at an Elon Musk Boring Company tunnel that's getting people quickly from the airport to downtown, I would say perhaps is blinded by ideology, because that is obviously a very cool project for Nashville. I hope they get started as soon as possible. Very, very cool story to tell. Gets us a lot of attention outside the region. Just very, very cool. I hope the state really pushes it through and doesn't let Metro slow them down. A barbecue spot is taking over the corner pub space in Brentwood. Honey Fire Barbecue Company will open at 710 Old Hickory Boulevard. Husband and wife owners Ben and Elizabeth Claybaker have always wanted to open a spot in their neighborhood. In fact, they've been looking for the perfect space in Brentwood since they opened Honey Fire's first Bellevue location in 2018. Honey Fire then expanded to Assembly Food Hall in 2023, becoming one of its top-selling restaurants. They offer shareables ranging from smoked wings to brisket queso and the honey hot block. Signature sandwiches like the pulled pork, Alabama slammer, or ranch hand, and classic dinner trays pairing smoked meats with southern sides. Build out of the Brentwood location should take 2 to 3 months, and Honey Fire hopes to be welcoming guests by October 1st. So that's coming quick. I wish them well on getting open. As much as I love barbecue, it really seems difficult for a family to go out and get some barbecue in Williamson County. We used to go to Jim and Nick's. We're not really cheap people, but I got a big family of 6. When we're going out to grab some barbecue, I'm not really trying to spend $100 bill to get some barbecue. But that's kind of how these barbecue places have decided to price themselves. Jim and Nick's used to be our go-to in Cool Springs, and we kind of got priced out of there. It just doesn't feel good to overpay for food when you've got a family of 6 that needs to be fed all the time. So we really are kind of without a go-to barbecue spot in Williamson County. Edley's is right by our house, and they do a nice job, but it's a little bit fancy, for our children at least. So we just need some good, affordable barbecue in Williamson County. I think it would do well. I haven't taken the time to figure out what the prices look like at Honey Fire Barbecue, but it seems to me that the trend in barbecue, at least in our area, is it's got to be this over-the-top, premium-priced experience, when really barbecue should be cheap and fast and easy and family-friendly. And for some reason, folks just haven't figured that out in Williamson County. So I am rooting for Honey Fire Barbecue Company to pull it off. After I've tried it, I will give you my feedback. Party Foul, which also had a Williamson County location right next to the mall, which closed. They are now in a a phase of their business where they're growing again. So they got small before they could grow again in concept. They're opening a new location in the Five Points area of East Nashville. The restaurant has requested a permit to operate at 1016 Woodland Street in a space that formerly housed 1016 Food and Drink, which closed all the way back in 2019. The East Nashville location is one of 4 planned locations under new ownership of Party Fowl. It also plans the locations in Murfreesboro, Sylvan Park, and near Vanderbilt University's campus. Party Fowl currently operates just 2 locations in the Gulch and Donaldson. The restaurant is emerging from a 2024 bankruptcy. When they went through that bankruptcy process, right? It's not bankruptcy is less of an event and more of a process, right? So they went through the bankruptcy process, and that's when they closed many of their out-of-state locations, and they closed their Party Fowl near the Galleria Mall in Cool Springs. So I wish them well. In concept, I thought Party Fowl was pretty good. I enjoyed it. We didn't go there often, but that's the type of food that my children will eat. So I wish them well. I hope they one day try to come back to Williamson County as well. But in the meantime, they're coming to Murfreesboro, East Nashville, Sylvan Park, and near Vanderbilt. So this is a nice story right here. H.G. Hill, one of the area's biggest, longest holding property owners, right? These are folks that don't do anything fast. They're very, very patient. They take their time. Most of, if not everything they own, except for maybe some of the new stuff, is owned debt-free. So they're just not people that rush. They're finally ready to get started on what they're calling Hill Center Franklin. H.G. Hill Realty Company announced it has begun the initial planning for the redevelopment of its Hill Center Franklin property with a variety of building types and uses. The future mixed-use development will unfold on a site with a main address of 926 Columbia Avenue. Hill Center Franklin will include a hotel building, a mixed-use building, and 3-story townhome buildings. The 5.7-acre property, which for Franklin standards is enormous. There are very few places where you can buy a full 5.7-acre site. Generally, you're going to have to assemble them over a period of years, very, very costly. That's what they've done down the street at the new mixed-use development that's being built there. That took years and years to assemble. H.G. Hill has been sitting on this location for a number of years. The 5.7-acre property was cleared years ago of its previous buildings, is located within Franklin's Columbia Avenue Overlay District. As such, the future buildings will be positioned at the sidewalk street level as opposed to being set back behind surface parking. The Overlay District was created to encourage pedestrian activation. The hotel being planned is a 120-key four-story hotel building, which is kind of the sweet spot in hotels, right? 4 stories, 120 keys. That's where you're seeing most of these suburban hotels being built. That's kind of the sweet spot in terms of size. The mixed-use building will front Columbia Pike and include underground parking to be shared by the hotel. The looming redevelopment will come as the Columbia Avenue corridor continues to see updates, including the police department and Franklin Transit Authority headquarters buildings, a visitor center at the Carter House, and work related to the Margin District. The Margin District is that other mixed-use development that I was just speaking of that took years and years to assemble. We've covered that in previous podcasts. The location serves as an extension of the downtown core. So anyone that knows Franklin knows that Columbia Avenue is one of those major roads that gets you everywhere you need to go around Franklin. But it is not really up to Franklin standards, right? It's yet to gentrify. It's older. It's just not nearly as nice. Franklin is a very, very nice city. In my opinion, the nicest city in the country, a utopian place to live. but Columbia Avenue is tired and in need of gentrification. And that's finally happening both with the Margin District and the new Hill Center Franklin, which are going to be very cool projects. It's going to take some time, but once you announce big projects like that, usually that snowballs into neighboring properties. And I think the transformation of Columbia Pike is now a real thing that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. The vibe going down Columbia Avenue is going to be much, much different. So I think that is a big win for Franklin. We've got some heavy hitters really pulling off some big, impressive projects there. And I think it's going to pick up some steam. You're going to see a lot of changes in that area. Blackstone says the real estate market is picking up steam. The world's largest commercial property owner sees a real estate recovery picking up after elevated interest rates, pandemic sparked office market struggles, and uncertainty over U.S. tariffs. For real estate, the good news is it's all a question of when and not if it will recover, said Blackstone's president and operating chief. The building blocks for this recovery are clearly coming into place, adding that in the broad economy, including real estate, the deal-making pause is behind us. When it comes to the drivers behind real estate, for one, reduced warehouse and apartment construction will lead to a much more favorable supply and demand picture. What they're saying was there was a big pause in terms of new construction of warehouses and apartments. So now that gives that new supply that's already on the market time to get leased up to become successful before some of the new projects will be complete and competing with it. The Federal Reserve's expected rate cuts will bode well for the commercial real estate industry that's been pressured by higher borrowing costs. Duh. Would someone please give us some interest rate relief? Please. We are getting closer to the tipping point where real estate will start to move. The cost of capital and decline of new supply are very supportive as you start to move forward. The company's proprietary data found inflation is below the Federal Reserve's target rate. So inflation is below their target rate, and still they haven't adjusted the interest rates because they've got some fear of a tariff-related boogeyman in the future. That should give the Fed room to cut rates over time, which is positive for asset value. We see multiple supportive tailwinds for interest rate cuts. So I hate to tell you, but the folks at Blackstone are smarter than the folks that work as government employees at the Federal Reserve. And Blackstone, who seems to have plenty of data, I don't know why the Fed can't find data that they can use, but Blackstone seems to have plenty of data from which to derive conclusions. And their conclusions are, we're below the target interest rate. There are multiple headwinds, quote, multiple supportive tailwinds, backward-looking data that supports an interest rate cut. So everyone is on board with an interest rate cut, except for the government employees that actually have to do it. So we have to be getting close. I don't think they can put it off too much longer. I've got 3 more stories for you all, and then we're going to wrap up today's podcast. Downtown, Jack's Barbecue closes after $15 million sale of the building. Robert's Western World, who is the owner of the neighboring property, Robert Western World plans an expansion after purchase of the property that has been a restaurant since 1994. The 2-story structure offers an address of 416A Broadway and has housed the restaurant for 31 years. So Robert's Western World, their address is 416B Broadway. So obviously 416 Broadway used to be one building. They're bringing 416 back under one building, which will going forward be known as Robert's Western World. The seller, Jack Cawthorn, purchased the property in 1996 for just $475,000. Not too bad selling for $15 million after you've used it to operate your business at a profit for so long. The building is only about 5,000 square feet. At that size, the deal would be equivalent to approximately $3,000 per square foot, which would be near a record price. The December 2024 sale of the nearby Margaritaville building also was sold for about $3,000 per square foot. With the sale and subsequent business closure, Cawthorn will focus on his Jack's Barbecue locations on Charlotte Avenue in Midtown and on West Trinity Lane north of downtown. So, there's never a good time to buy property on Broadway because, at least to date, the prices always go up. We're to a place where to get a 5,000 square foot expansion is going to cost you $15 million plus renovation costs. So Robert's Western World must really be cranking to justify $15 million plus renovation costs to get access to 5,000 square feet more from which to do business. So they must be doing something right, but I can tell you that the health of the real estate market on Broadway remains unbelievably strong. Another area of the city that is going crazy is the East Bank. Now, an 18-story hotel is planned very near the Oracle campus. The Oracle campus, which has been getting headlines for many years now, still not a single shovel in the ground there. Developers have revealed plans for an 18-story Hilton hotel that is slated for a site near Oracle's future $1.35 billion River North campus. The hotel is planned for a 0.87-acre site located at 100 Spring Street across Cohen Street from Top Golf. Most folks know where Top Golf is. It's very near there. The hotel is set to be a dual-branded Tempo and Homewood Suites by Hilton and offer 300 rooms. Plans for the hotel include 10,000 square feet of meeting space, food and beverage options, as well as a rooftop. The hotel development team does not yet own the site. Nashville resident named Donald Day owns the Spring Street property, which was previously eyed for a skydiving attraction with a group called Austin-based iFly Indoor Skydiving, which never came to fruition. Indoor skydiving for a very, very valuable site that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Nearby, another development team is planning a 17-story dual-branded Hilton hotel on the property at 611 Cohen Street. So about 5 blocks away, you've got another dual-branded Hilton hotel. So the East Bank, really, really strong. There's very little, some projects are done, but very few are done. It's just the excitement is building for what will be in the future. They're developing ahead of demand. They're trying to project what this area will look like in 10 or 15 years, and they are fighting for every inch of land on the East Bank and paying huge prices to get their hands on it. Let's go to another area of Nashville that gets a lot less attention, even though I would tell you it is one of those up-and-coming areas where you can still pay a reasonable price for a property. You can get in at a lower price, and if you're patient enough, those properties are sure to appreciate in value going forward, and that is Donaldson. The former Donaldson Hospital is now planned for a massive new development. Indiana-based Holiday Properties, these are the same folks that are doing the incredible renovation of the factory at Franklin, is planning a 22-acre development on the site of the old Donaldson Hospital on Lebanon Pike. Holiday Properties is seeking to rezone the property with a main address of 3055 Lebanon Pike to allow for a mixed-use development. The site, now called Donaldson Corporate Center, once housed the Donaldson Hospital, which closed more than a decade ago. It has since operated as an office space, but is now completely empty. So you've got 22 acres of buildings now sitting completely empty. If rezoning is approved, the development could offer a grocery store, apartments, restaurants, and retail space, office space, and single-family homes, among a mix of other uses. So basically everything. Every type of property we're going to try to squeeze into this 22 acres. Up to 600 residential units, 100,000 square feet of office space, and 65,000 square feet of restaurant, retail, and grocery store space would be allowed for the project. The total project could span nearly 1 million square feet, marking a huge development for the fast-growing Donaldson area. Holiday Properties does not yet own the site. The 22-acre property is owned by Donaldson Corporate Center LP, which paid $4 million for the site in 1998. The firm, Holiday Properties, is responsible for the redevelopment of the factory at Franklin and is also leading the charge on redeveloping the nearby Donaldson Plaza. So that's good because these guys really know the Donaldson area. They've been very involved there, been very dialed in there, even before they got involved at the factory. Donaldson, which is located near Nashville International Airport, has rapidly evolved in recent years, attracting several major investments and new restaurants. Many well-known bars and restaurants like Midnight Oil, Red Door Saloon, Tim Hortons, among others, recently announced plans to open new locations in Donaldson. So, if you're wondering if there's any decent neighborhoods in which you can buy into at a relatively low price, Donaldson is the one that a lot of folks have their eyes on. We've done quite a bit of business over there. I like that submarket. There's not a whole lot of eyeballs on Donaldson right now, but the folks that are really dialed into our market and understand where you can buy value, I think are taking a hard look at Donaldson. As long as you've got patient money and you've got a 10 or a 15 or a 20-year investment horizon, I think Donaldson is a great place to place some of your money, to place some of your bets. So that rounds out today's show. That is everything we could find that is worthy of your attention over the past 2 weeks. I hope we've added some value. If there's anything that you'd like us to cover on future shows, you feel free to reach out. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, I am Beau Beach. This podcast is brought to you by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, your AI-enhanced broker for sellers in Nashville in the Southeast. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time.